What is inspiration? Welcome to Philosopher's Corner. I'm John. What is inspiration? The standard definition is to get someone into an excited state, one that can manifest in invention, in action, and is generally be in an excited state. Another definition for it is divine guidance placed directly on a mind or soul, which is a pretty extraordinary definition. So, what is it? We know that inspiration is a feeling. We know that. When we read accounts of other people who do inspiring acts, and when we look at great inventions or moments of inspiration, for instance, Sir Isaac Newton, in regards to his discovery of gravity, where he was famously sitting under a tree and an apple fell, and that inspired him to deduce that gravity is a force. He had a moment of inspiration under that tree. It sparked a new way of thinking for him. It was a whole new energetic download that came to him, and a new consciousness appeared to him, essentially, and he discovered a force of nature. Now, that's happened to other people under trees as well. Obviously, Buddha, he sat under a tree and was in an inspired meditation for a lengthy amount of time. And there's lots of instances of people being inspired under trees. Whenever we look at great inventions, great ideas coming into the world, there's typically a moment of inspiration. And that's not speculative, that's coming from the mouths of the people who brought forth these new ideas, these new inventions, these new ways of acting, these new ways of behaving, these new modes of consciousness. And when the people who are inspired, when they describe the moments of inspiration, they describe a lead up of things to that moment, which then somehow put them into a moment which appears to be a moment of reception, whereupon a flood of new ideas and a stream of consciousness that was otherwise not there suddenly is channeled through their person. Most of the time, they describe it through what their intellect is interpreting it, because they tend to be in a meditative state or in an intellectually receptive mode. Although lots of people have been heart inspired, lots of people have been inspired in different parts of their body. But philosophically, we're sort of like an intellectually focused discipline. So we're sort of concentrating on that. But inspiration can be a full body inspiration. People have been inspired to suddenly leap out and do things. When I perform as an artist, one of my areas of expertise is inspiration. I do public performances. The chief aim is inspiration, and I channel inspiration for people. And when the channeling of the inspiration happens, it's universally reported as an ecstatic feeling. It's truly one of the great feelings a person can feel. Because in that moment, a stream of consciousness is coming in that it's purer than the person's normal state. It's of a higher consciousness than the person's normal state. And it tends to have a wish fulfillment aspect to it, where answers that are being sought come in, guidance that's being sought comes in, energies that are being sought come in, and then not only are they coming in, but they're coming in a way that the person who's channeling the inspiration has somehow, in one way or another, been prepared to then be able to act on them. So the inspiration, it's not just a fleeting, ephemeral feeling or even a series of good thoughts. It ends up being a direct link to a consciousness, a stream of consciousness that then fuels greater acts. It would have been one thing for Isaac Newton to be there by the tree and then have an apple fall and be like, oh, now I get it. But he went on to incorporate it into a language of mathematics and physics that has changed the world. And from what we can tell, so many of the acts that have changed the world have been born of inspirational moments. And so when we observe these inspirational moments or the ability to channel inspiration, we should take into account a few things. One, almost all of the people who have engaged in these moments, which have a high correlation to paradigm shifts in the world, large scale changes in the world, to the point that, like, you know, even like the idea of the light bulb, we have a metaphor, a visual metaphor that, like, oh, when someone gets an idea or inspired, a light bulb goes off. You know, well, you know, the energy hitting, the new consciousness energy hitting into the brain lights it up with new ideas, you know. So we have that light bulb go off. And when the person who has received that inspiration has the light bulb go off, then based on how their constitution, how they're formed, then they can act in a sort of Prometheus way and take that fire and put it through their person and translate it into the material world in some capacity. It doesn't have to be science. It could be whatever. People, inspiration is a source of so many amazing things in the world, from ranging from art and science to architecture and dining and everything in between. Like, many of the great and beautiful things that we love in this world are a result of inspiration, which, if we just study it directly, it's just a human being doing their life, and then at some point, some stream of consciousness energy contacts them, goes through them, goes through their person, and then manifests itself through whatever craft they were prepared to, that they had been preparing themselves to be able to do. So if an actor gets inspired, then they can do this great speech or this great acting. And if a cook gets inspired, then they come up with a whole new menu. Or if a dancer gets inspired, they have a whole new dance. Or if a mother gets inspired, she has a whole new way of raising her family. There's literally infinite ways that inspiration can work. And it's really just important to acknowledge the concept as a reality, that inspiration is a thing. And it's important to acknowledge it because it's an unseen thing. It's a human being saying that they were going through the course of normal events and they were struck by an energy. And when they were being struck by that energy, in that energy, there was new information, new ways of thinking, new ways of behaving, da 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 da. But there was, within this ecstatic energy that comes into them, there's profound information, which goes back to one of the definitions of inspiration, which is divine guidance placed directly on a mind or soul. And all of these inspired people testified to the physical phenomenon of the moment of inspiration, which is almost uniformly described as ecstatic or enjoyable or euphoric or aha, or whatever their language is for, well, that felt really good and higher than my normal level of consciousness. And then, as if to prove to the material world that that moment was inspired, based on whatever their abilities are, profound work emanates from them. And oftentimes in a way that even if people are using it or enjoying it, they still don't understand how that person got to that level. It's still sort of like magic to these people. And that really is the evidence and the proof of the divine intervention, or if you're not willing to accept that, exceptionally higher levels of consciousness contacting and channeling down into an individual human being. So that phenomenon itself is already philosophically amazing. The fact that an individual human being can be contacted by a higher consciousness, and that it's not just hearsay, then there's evidence of the fact that it was a higher consciousness, because that person was at this level and then inspiration hit, and then they're at this higher level, and it's evidenced by the fruits of their labor, whatever that labor is. And then it's generally regarded that, oh yeah, that person, whatever happened, like they're way above what we did. Like he's like when Steve Jobs came back with, you know, his vision for the computer world, which was really the most important thing. It wasn't just the tech, but his whole vision for what computers could be for the world. No one knew where that came from. And when you look into Steve Jobs stories, of course, you'll find out that he had been going to ashrams, and he had been experimenting with ways to level up his consciousness. And then he would get inspired from time to time, and he would channel this information to, you know, higher levels of consciousness. And that's typically a story with inspired people. So just in terms of submitting sort of as evidence, as proof that human beings can interact with higher consciousnesses or divinity, Webster's dictionary definition, not mine, we have inspiration. So you get both parts of the important part of the equation. You get a human being describing in detail, or even being filmed, having higher consciousness energy affect them in the moment, and that can be materialistically problematic to prove. So as an effect of that moment, then they have indisputable evidence of oftentimes paradigm shifting or consciousness level raising works coming out of them. And when you package them together and you look at the whole phenomenon as a philosopher, then you can really confirm that human beings are, in fact, one of the things that they are bioantennas for channeling different levels and higher levels of consciousness. It's evidence. It's evidence of human interaction with, you know, the ether, or the infinite intelligence that is in, that we're a part of, and that we're surrounded by constantly. So, and it's, if not the most, one of the most important mechanisms for the evolution of humanity as a species. Because when the inspiration comes in, then it can advance the consciousness of the species in innumerable manner, or innumerable ways. So it can be done deliberately. You can prepare yourself to be inspired. It's a state of mind that one can get into to receive inspiration. And for many people, it's part of the job description to whatever their work is. Like some people require to be inspired to even do their work. Like I have painters, screenplay people, architects, like so many people, and they don't even necessarily articulate it. But the inspiration is an integral part of their process to do their work. And we have evidence that human beings have been inspired since the dawn of man. So we know that it's a universal part of the human condition, and it's an essential part of the human condition to move us forward in life and our understanding of it. So what is inspiration? Mechanism that moves humanity forward. It's direct evidence of humans as a bioantenna channeling higher consciousness into material works and divine guidance directly placed on human mind or soul. So I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for spending some time here at Philosopher's Corner. I hope you were inspired and have fun.